So today we're going to start building a dresser, and the goal with this dresser is to show you that even if you are a beginner, you can easily build this with just 4 power tools. So I'm talking circular saw, miter saw, and in fact you could also do the miter saw jobs using the circular saw if you wanted to. So circular saw, miter saw, power drill, and a nail gun. And then we're going to use some jigs like the pocket hole jig and the rip cut guide. But pretty much that is it. So this project is going to be super beginner friendly, and we're going to build a dresser with 5 drawers. In fact, I had designed a 3-drawer dresser almost like 6 years ago, and I do not have the video for it, and it is time we take care of that. So 3 drawers, 5 drawers, the process to build it is pretty much the same. But before we get started, if you are new here, I am Anika, and I am here to demystify DIY and inspire and empower you to build all of the things. I have a ton of resources, tool tutorials, and courses, as well as lots of project ideas. And I will add a link to a few of the things in the description below so you can get started. And now let's get started with the project. The body of the dresser is mostly made with plywood, so I cut that down using a circular saw. I do have a detailed video on how to cut down plywood, and I will add a link to that in the description below. The rip cut guide that I'm using here is actually my favorite way to make cuts on plywood because it helps me make repeated cuts quickly and accurately. I cut down the 1x2s and the 2x2s that I need for the project on the miter saw. Okay, so here's what we've got. We've got the 2 sides. I've got 2x2 legs, so 4 legs. Then I've got all of the dividers that are going to be in the middle, and we have some trim, plus the bottom and the top plywood. Now it's time for pocket holes. I am using the Crec 720, but you can use any pocket hole jig you like. And if you are new to pocket holes, I do have a pocket hole reference guide that you can grab from the description below. Plus, I do have an entire course called Pocket Hole Ninja that helps you conquer pocket holes and teaches you everything you need to know to get the most out of your projects. The pocket holes on the plywood and the 1x2s are made with the jig at the 3/4 inch setting, which is the thickness of the plywood and the 1x2s. But for the pocket holes in 2x2s, we are going to set the jig as well as the drill bit collar to 1.5 inch setting, which is the thickness of the 2x2. Okay, now it's time to put it all together. First up, we're going to attach the 1x2 trim to the sides of the dresser. And this is attached using wood glue and brad nails. And the best way to do this is to align and clamp the boards in place and turn it over and add the finished nails so that the nails are not visible on the outside. And now I can go ahead and attach the side plywood to the 2x2 legs to build the sides of the dresser. The key here is to align it really well and use a clamp to make sure everything stays aligned as I add in the pocket hole screws. Now, you do see here that the direction of the grain on the plywood is actually perpendicular to the legs, which is not the ideal case. Ideally, I would have loved to have the plywood grain in the same direction, so vertically. However, I made an error when I cut down the boards, so learn from my mistakes and please pay attention to the grain direction. And I built 2 of these so we have both sides of the dresser. Now it's time to build the bottom. And for the bottom, again, I am attaching 2x2 boards to the bottom plywood using 1.25 inch pocket hole screws. Okay, now let's assemble the dresser. First up, I am attaching the bottom to one of the sides. Now, the first time I aligned the bottom, I was actually doing it right. But then I thought about something and turned it around. Turns out that was wrong. I should have left it the way I aligned it first. And this is why I always like to build the project so that I can make any changes and corrections to the plans before giving them to you. So don't worry about it. The plans show you the right way to attach it. Now you have to remember, as you're attaching the 2x2s, they use the 2.5 inch pocket hole screws, but when you attach the plywood or the 1x2s, they use the 1.25 inch pocket hole screws. And then I measured and marked exactly where the dividers were going to be and attached them using wood glue and pocket hole screws. It is very important to make sure that these dividers are aligned and straight, and the speed square was a great help for that. And then I just repeated that for each and every divider. Now with all the dividers attached, let's put this on the side and get ready to attach it to the other side of the dresser. To attach it to the other side of the dresser, I used a 2x2 board to give me an idea of where the top aprons were going to be. And then I measured from that, taking into account the thickness of the boards, etc., and marked where each of the dividers were going to be attached. Marking all of these is going to help me easily align all of the dividers when I attach them. Now I can attach the other side, which was a little bulky to handle, but that's okay. I applied wood glue and aligned all of the boards and added pocket hole screws. Now this is the point where I realized that I had actually attached the bottom the wrong way, and it was a little too late to fix that. So I just went with it. It did make a small difference in what the final dresser looks like, but it's hard to tell. And I'm actually going to challenge you to tell me in the comments what you think happened as a result of it. It was just something small that I had to keep track of for the rest of the build, but I bet you can barely see it in the final project. And that, my friends, is the frame for the dresser. Okay, it is time to build the drawers. Now, I did have enough plywood left over from the sheet of plywood I bought for the dresser, as well as a whole bunch of scrap plywood. I actually still have more scrap plywood, but I was able to get enough pieces for all of the drawers. So I just took all of the assorted pieces of plywood that I had and ripped them up to 5.5 inches, but they're all 5.5. So if you want, you could totally use 1x6 boards instead of using plywood. So you don't have to rip it and stuff, and all you need to do is cut it down with your miter saw to the size that you need. So to build the drawers, I'm going to do it the simplest possible way. I'm going to use pocket holes to build the box, and then we're just going to glue and nail in the bottom. And it should be strong enough because we're not really putting like weights in there. This is just for clothes. I've had great luck building it that way, but if you want, you could also create a recessed bottom, but for that, you do need a table saw. I do have a very detailed video on how to build drawers and install them, and I will add a link to that in the description. But essentially, I just made pocket holes, attached all the boards to build a box, and made sure everything was square, and attached the bottom using wood glue and finish nails. And then just repeated that 5 times. Now let's install the drawer slides. These are going to be inside drawer fronts, so I marked exactly where that would be and aligned the drawer slide to that and attached it to the sides. I do go into all of the details on how to attach drawer slides and install the drawer boxes in my video on how to build drawers, so definitely check that out for all of the details. A lot of people have found that extremely helpful. Okay, so now here is the deal with the next level of drawer slides. Ideally, you could use a drawer slide jig. I like to use this Craig drawer slide jig, which attaches right here. This is the wrong one. This one. It goes right here and it sort of aligns itself automatically, and you just clamp it, and then you can support your drawer slide here and attach it. But the problem with that over here in this case is that the drawer slide will be here, which is pretty high, and my drawer is only about that high, so it'll be like at the very top edge of the drawer, and I don't want that. I want it like lower around here, kind of like we did right here. So in order to do that, I decided to sort of create my own stack, and I found that I can use 2 2x4 scrap boards, place them on the drawer on the bottom over here, and then I can place this right here, and we can have the drawer slide go on there. And now it's just a matter of repeating the entire process and installing the rest of the 4 drawers. Now, since I'm using plywood for the drawer fronts, I edge banded all 4 sides of all of the drawer fronts. And I also edge banded the top of the dresser. Once all the edge banding is applied, I like to use my sander with 220 grit sandpaper to sand away any overhang as well as any overflow of the glue. And that gives a clean, seamless edge. Anytime I am using drawer pulls for drawers, I like to make the holes for the drawer pulls first and then take them over and line them up. I did play around with the configuration a little bit until I was happy with the direction of the grains on the drawer fronts. I basically went for every drawer having opposite grain direction. And then to attach the drawer fronts, I used wood glue, made sure there was 1/8 of an inch spacing all around, and added temporary screws through the holes we had made earlier. And now I can take the drawer off and add in permanent countersunk screws from the inside. And then I just repeated that for all of the drawers. Now to attach the top, it is pretty straightforward, except that it involves turning the entire structure upside down and aligning it, making sure there is 1 inch overlay on all 3 sides, and attaching it with pocket hole screws. And through the 2x2s, I pre-drilled and added 2-inch long countersunk screws. And there, my friends, the dresser is built. Now it's time for the final finish. So I gave the entire dresser a very light sanding, followed by the pre-stain conditioner. I'm going to be using water-based stain, so I'm using a water-based pre-stain conditioner. And then I sanded down any of the raised grain and followed that with the stain. Once the stain was dry, I gave it a couple coats of top coat and attached all of the drawer pulls. And now I can put all of the drawers back. So something that I completely totally forgot about is the fact that we need to add something to the back of the dresser that can be used to anchor this dresser to the wall. So to do that, I'm going to be adding this piece of plywood to the back right here. I have made pocket holes. It's the exact size as this. I cut it down to the exact size as this. I've got pocket holes and we are just going to attach it right here. Now this is a piece of plywood I already had. It was a cutoff and I could just cut it down to fit here, but I don't even know how wide this is. But anything that is 3.5 inches or more is good enough. So a 1x4 or anything wider works. So whatever you have, you can use that. Like I'm using this piece of plywood. Okay, now the last part of this is adding a 1/4 inch plywood backing. I actually do not add backing to my dressers and nightstands. I just think that it's not entirely necessary, and also if something falls behind a drawer, I can just move the dresser or the nightstand and grab that instead of having to remove all the drawers, finding it, putting it back in. So it's totally a personal preference. Obviously, a properly finished dresser has a back. So definitely add a sheet of plywood on the back. If you wanted to, you could insert the backing by routing out a step all around and putting in the backing. And in that case, you would have to inset your board right here that's used for anchoring the dresser by another 1/4 inch inside as well. Or you can simply cut a board, a plywood, and attach it on top. In that cut it about 1/4 inch shorter on all sides so that it's not visible from the sides. But yeah, you can cut it out, attach it using finish nails, and we're done. And that is the dresser. The detailed step-by-step plans, including the cut list and schematics, is available in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time with another fun project.